So I wanted to make a statement, and you can say if you agree or disagree. Ready?
Ready.
So would you say that movies today are better than movies produced, let's say, 40 years ago?
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to my podcast, Two Mics, One Joey Stooch. I am Joey Stooch, and I'll be giving a mic to Alba Francesca. She is an actress that appeared in 21 shorts and TV shows, has 3 producer credits and 2 directing credits. She is also an extremely talented textile artist. If you don't know what that is, it is putting designs on a quilt. She is also working on a project in Los Angeles called the Hollywood Arts Collective. It is a project to provide affordable housing for the arts and entertainment industry. How are you today?
Good, thank you. It's nice to see you, Joey.
Nice to see you too. For everyone that's listening, we work together at our jobs. I have a small connection with Finch College, Finch Alumni Association, and Alba has a long history with Finch College and the Alumni Association, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Would you like to talk about the Hollywood Arts Initiative, or would you like to talk about your career first?
Let's do the career, because then I'll tell you what my life is about today. I grew up on Eastern Long Island in an early town. People think of it as the Hamptons, but we were an artist family. And I grew up there, went to public school there. And there was a wonderful summer stock theater called the John Drew Theater, named after Drew Barrymore's relatives. And so I started working at the age of 10. Working as an apprentice. It was illegal because I was too young, but my parents knew the woman who was the director. She knew I was responsible. So connections. And so I started working at 10, and then I started acting that first summer, doing a children's show for a director who came from New York. And I played Rumpelstiltskin. And the minute I put my little toe on the stage, I said, this is what I'm going to do for my life. And I think many actors have that moment when they know this is it. So
are you addicted to the spotlight?
I don't think I am anymore, but I certainly was during my years of acting. I never wanted fame, but it was the thrill of being on the stage with a live audience. And then when I was 16, I had worked the summer before as a chambermaid in a local hotel, and I would work early in the morning and run over to the theater in the afternoon, but it allowed me to put some money away to go off to work as an apprentice in New England in summer stock. And then after that, I went off to college, and I went to Finch, and I knew that I would go back into acting, but I went to Finch
to study art. To study art.
I studied art history, which was a natural direction because my father was a painter, my mother was his model, and I grew up in that world, very artistic world, so it was natural. And I knew I would go back to acting when I finished college. So that's what I did. My college experience was wonderful. Finch College was right in the middle of Manhattan. I think you can hear the sirens. They're not coming for me. But and going to college in Manhattan was wonderful. You know, the city was our campus. I was fortunate. We had all the museums that New York had to offer, and the art galleries, and wonderful small classes, and very, very good teachers. And I was able to go to Europe my junior year with the school, and it was a great year of studying in Spain, Italy, France, and England. So that was pretty amazing. And then I came back, finished Finch, and went actually with the theater professor, Isaiah Sheffer, who those of you in New York might know, the symphony space up on Broadway in the 80s, I think in 80s. And he was one of the founders of that. But prior to that, he was directing around New York, and he took me as his assistant director. And I then continued acting. I did a little soap work in New York, some commercials. I met the man who would be my husband, re-met him. I'd actually met him as a young girl when I was working in the John Drew Theater, but then we worked together at the American Place Theater in New York City. And he and I, after a few years, moved to California, which was where most of the work was. And I was not a musical performer. And at that time, most everything done on Broadway was musical. So we moved to California, and immediately both of us started working in television, in film. My husband was a wonderful character actor named James Karen, Karen, James Karen, and the people in the northeastern part of the United States also knew him as Mr. Pathmark. But he did many, many wonderful films and over 100 television shows. So we were very busy acting. And then at one point in my 30s, I just wanted more control over my life. And I'd already started producing in Los Angeles in the theater. Beatrice Straight had asked me to produce for her. And they were just, it was just a natural thing for me to transition into producing in the theater because I'd spent so many years in the theater. I understood how it all fit together. And then from that, I was sort of lured into producing in film. And that's where I ended up. Eventually, I worked with a couple of wonderful people, the great cinematographer, John Bailey, who, with his wife, the great editor, Carol Littleton, took me along. I worked with them on a few films. And then I just continued producing and enjoyed it. And I like to produce. It's a natural thing. I'm very organized, and I like to work in the different steps of producing. I love to work with script development, right through post-production. So that's what I did for many years. And now, shall I segue into what I do now with Hollywood Arts Collective?
Let's go back in time a little bit. So you say you started acting when you were 10.
Yeah.
Did you always like to be in theater, or would you ever want to be behind a TV screen?
When I was growing up, there was no television where I was. It was always theater. And I just loved the theater. It was just the right place for me. It was the stage, working on the stage in the theater was the right place. And I really didn't work in front of a camera until I just graduated from college. And that's when I see, at that time, we didn't have cell phones. Not very many young people were making films. I mean, today it's so wonderful. Young people can make films, I mean, all we have to do is have a phone. And we can make films. So, and some good ones. Some, really.
Would you have rather be an actress back then, or would you rather be an actress now?
It was a very different world at that time. It was very personal. When I first moved to California, you always went in person to audition. You always were faxed your sides that you were going to read from, and I'd drive all over this town to MGM, to CBS, to 20th Century Fox to do my audition in person, usually for the casting agent and the director and sometimes the producers. Today, much of the casting is done by actors never leaving their home. They do their auditions, they film themselves, and they're sent in. So it was a right thing for me to have that personal interaction that we had when I was acting.
So are you saying you would not be able to compete with today's style of casting?
Joey, as long as I had you to guide me technically, I'd be great. We'll get to that later, how we worked together and how we met. But no, I think you do whatever it is you have to do to adapt to the time. We just didn't have the technology when I was a young woman building a career.
So how was it like when you when you went from doing theater to being in front of a camera? Was it like a smooth transition, or was it?
You know, excuse me. I had some wonderful directors who just taught me to be a little smaller in my work on film. And on stage, you know, there are a lot of people out there watching you in a big cavernous space. So I had to learn to work a little more internally, because the camera sees everything. So it wasn't hard. My first couple of TV shows, I did a Western with Rod Taylor, and I did things like Magnum PI. This was in the late 70s, 80s.
Yeah, this is the old one. Most people today would, if you would say Magnum PI, did a new version of it now.
This is the original one with Tom Selleck.
Yeah, we're just recycling content at this point.
That's right. That's right. So it wasn't a terrible adjustment. But I have to say, you know, when I look back at my career, I was always happiest on the stage and working in front of a live audience. And my husband had worked a great deal on Broadway and in New York and in theater. And when we came out here, he would make the crew his audience. And he loved the crew. He would walk on a set. He loved everybody on the show. You know, that was who he played to in a scene. So he was able to, enjoy both film. He continued. And actually, we went back for many years and we'd do a show. I went off with Eve Arden and did a touring show with her. And, you know, we'd always go back to the stage in those early years until we got too busy in California to leave the television and film careers.
Well, since we're in a strange time now for the last year and a half, I think almost 2 years now. So there have been a lot of discussions of whether to continue to do shows. Would you be able to manage to do a show with no audience? Because a lot of shows had been in front of no audiences, and there's some people that never been in front of an audience before. How would you have handled not being in front of an audience?
I think the work for the actor is the same. You know, the challenge for actors, you know, obviously in talk shows and live shows where an audience is important, that would be a different challenge. But, you know, if you're doing a dramatic show, comedies are a little tricky. They pump in those laugh reels. Yeah, you adapt. It's the same process for the actor, whether you're on stage, on film, or with an audience or without. The actor's work is still the same.
I guess if you're doing a Broadway show, it wouldn't matter too much because you're just going through all the motions. But when you're a comedian, you need the audience reaction to know if it's good or not, because they are your people that give you an opinion. Because you don't, like, you in your head might think the joke is funny, but you need kind of that audience, and you can't just put it on YouTube and have someone watch it because it's still not the same, because you need a live audience, and it's a crucial point to comedy especially.
I think absolutely right. I think it's, first of all, to be a stand-up is like running to the edge of the cliff and taking a leap every time you go on that stage. It takes a lot of courage, I think, to be a stand-up.
Well, I never done it before, and I wanted to, but it's a lot of comedians say it's brutal out there, and a lot of people give up because it's just brutal. Like, a lot of jokes bomb, or you know, like no one laughs and such. And it's like a mixture of things. It could be one, the audience, not your audience that you want to impress, and then two, maybe your jokes are bad, and like you need to have like high self-esteem to like outlast that world and become big. Because a lot of these comedians been doing this for like 5 to 10 years before they ever became big, because it's hard to do a comedian because you only have 5 minutes, and you only have 5 minutes to do any jokes. And then, but like when you see the comedian doing this for like an hour, like on Netflix, it's easy to do an hour, but you don't see them grinding every day, every night, 5 minutes at a time, doing these jokes. to make it big, it takes a long time to get there. And I don't think a lot of people see that. They just think, oh, they're funny. They can just produce an hour work and go
No,
up there.
that's not how it works. It's all about writing the jokes. It's about timing the jokes. This is a very good book that I read this year that Bud Friedman, who started the Improv, both in New York and then in LA. It's his autobiography, and he talks about all the comics who came through the Improv. And that places like the Improv, the Laugh Factory, that's where comics can hone their talent. But they have to be pretty damn good to even get an opportunity in a place like that. And then they start out at 2 a.m. You got 5 minutes, 10 minutes at 2 a.m, kid, so, but it was a very good book. And Bud Friedman sits on the Actors Fund board, the Western Council that I sit on. So that's why I wanted to read his book. And it's quite interesting. And many of the comics went through the Improv, from Jay Leno and, Robin Williams. They all went through. That was where they got up and they did their thing. So
how does it work with producing a Broadway show? Because you write the script, let's say, for 90 minutes. Like, do they do a show and then make edits throughout the show before it becomes like live? Like before it comes like that people can pay tickets? Like, how does that work?
Are you talking about stand-ups, a stand-up show?
No, I'm talking about like a Broadway show.
They will do out-of-town tryouts if they're fortunate. They will for me. I have all my life, since I left home, lived up the street from a fire station. And I'm talking to you from Los Angeles. So
yeah, I thought I had it bad because I live in New York City, but I feel like you have it worse.
Well, I do have fire engines, but that makes me feel like I'm really in a city.
Yeah.
At all. I think, there used to be all the out-of-town tryouts for shows that went to Broadway, and the writers and the directors and producers would be honing and shaping the show in Philadelphia, on the road, wherever, Boston, wherever they were, New Haven, trying it out in front of audiences, and hopefully worked out the problems that they had before they arrived on Broadway. So,
how long do you think it take to make a Broadway show?
It can take years. It can take years to write it, to get the financing for it, to get a director, put together your team who are going to make the Broadway show, your producers, your financial people, your director, your talent. It can take many years. Many years.
Yeah, this is unfortunate. I love live theater. I'm not sure if you ever heard of Shakespeare in the Park and Central Park. And I did went to one and
yes.
went to a show called Merry Wives, and it was amazing. It was a black adaptation of the original playwright, I think, of Merry Wives. And it was great. But for me, I think, while I haven't seen a live show in a long time, which in and of itself had a magic to it versus like watching a film.
Yeah.
But also, I think the biggest thing to me was watching it with an audience, because it was just like a much different energy, and it also felt like really comfortable too. And it's like a feeling I haven't experienced in a long time since the pandemic, since everything's indoors. You only watch it with 2 people, and so it was just really like nice to experience that feeling again.
Yeah, we're all craving being with people. I went to my first film screening about a week ago. I have a friend, Martha Plimpton. Do you know who she is? A lovely actress, Martha Plimpton. And Martha is one of the stars of a film called Mass. And so she was going to be at the screening. And I love to see anything she does. She was going to do a Q&A afterwards. And my brother was in town from Santa Fe. So the 2 of us went. And it was in a smallish screening room, which was maybe about half full, which was great because there was room between us all. We had to show proof of vaccination. We wore our masks through the film. And it was wonderful to be in a dark theater again, sharing the experience of watching a film. I went this week also, Los Angeles. This has been a huge week in our town because the Motion Picture Academy's film museum opened this week. And so they've had a series of events, and it was really, I have many friends who work at the Academy, so I've been seeing virtual tours of it, and the design, the architecture is spectacular by an Italian architect. So they had a series of opening events this week. So I went to a couple of them, and it was just good to be out again. There's a huge dome which opens up, and you look at the Hollywood sign into the hills in Hollywood. So you could be in that space, all together. They had, food and bars, and it was just good to be back out there. And most people by now, certainly most of the people I know have been vaccinated and boosted. So, it felt very safe, especially in this big open space, open to the world and the air and the sky.
Yeah, I did wish it never happened. I hope things go back to normal as soon as possible because we're all craving that interaction. I guess we'll be okay, but I can't imagine the kindergartens who I've never saw another kid before. How growing up, your social skills are being honed and practiced, and I feel like it's hurting them more in the long run because they're forced to stay inside, and Zoom doesn't cut it, especially for younger people.
Doesn't cut it for older people. I don't think Zoom is any replacement for human contact.
It's a good supplement, with FaceTime, it's a good supplemental, but it can't be an always solution.
Right. And children, as you say, children learn by socializing with other children. So, it's just important to do that, for them to develop.
It should be interesting to see in 10, 20 years how much damage the pandemic has caused for the younger kids.
Yeah.
It's just, I wish them the best, though, and I hope they're able to recover.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask, so you've been in a lot of shows and produced movies and stuff. What would you say is your favorite role to be in?
I like doing comedy. Okay. I just, I like comedy, but I've also liked very intense dramatic parts. I'm not sort of, I don't like sort of the lady next door, straight and I don't look like that and I don't sound like that.
Well, are you pigeonholed into a certain character?
In casting, I would be cast, say, as the character woman or the second woman. So if there's a villain, I'd likely get to be cast as that. I wouldn't be cast as the glamorous Hollywood, pretty blonde type. And I always thought how lucky for me, and partially because my voice is a character voice. It's kind of a low voice. So I would say character parts in terms of casting, more in that direction than the mom.
But have you ever been pigeonholed to play only one character? Because I know some characters always pigeonholed to play one. So if someone's fat, they're always played out that this fat, dumb person, let's say.
No, I was not pigeonholed. I was lucky in that way.
Yeah. It's amazing to see some actors, you know them as comedians and stuff, and then they play a super serious role. And it's hard to believe that they're the same person almost. Well,
it's interesting. I think people who can do comedy very often can do the opposite and go into the depths of dramatic roles. So, I mean, if you think about what was that movie Jerry Lewis did, where he's tied up and, you know, he's sort of kidnapped, and he was very good in that role. And we all think of him as doing this broad comedy. But I think kind of put aside preconceptions and, you know, just be in the moment as you're watching a comedian or, you know, an actor perform, and judge them for that performance. If you can do that, you know, if you can put the other notion of who they are and what they do aside.
Well, it's kind of really two parts. It's one, it's the audience having, not prejudice, but assuming that they'll never play a drama role. But it's also the directing person had to take a chance on that actress, right, if they'll be able to nail the role, because you don't want to waste your time and their time producing a not great movie, for example.
Think about Robin Williams. He was one of the great stand-ups.
Yeah.
And then he could do something like Poet Society. I mean, he was really, he had a broad scope. So, you know, if you want to see a comedian who can play dramatic roles as well, he's somebody to watch.
Another one that's in the more modern times is Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
Like he was like the young college guy, and like I mentioned the pigeon-holed because I just read something about him. Like he was always the fat kid no one really respected at all, and he was always pigeonholed. Even when he had a serious drama movie and he did really well, people still didn't respect him enough. So, but like I guess now he's more respected as a drama person, and he's a great actor. I think it's one of those hidden secrets of Hollywood.
Yes, I agree. Like, and I'd love to see an actor who I've seen playing in one area in comedy, for instance, as with him, and then see him take a turn. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, like you kind of don't know what they're able to do when you just see one side of them, you know. Right. You only see a person in a movie and they're always showing the best part, but you don't know who they are as a person. You know, they could, like, you know, they're doing their job well when, let's say, they're playing like an evil role and you hate them. But they could be like the nicest guy in the world, like off the scene. So they're doing the job well. If you hate them.
Well, you know, I think by now we're pretty sophisticated about separating actors from their roles. But I know my late husband, Jim, told me a story that he was on a soap and he was playing a villain on one of the soaps before we knew each other. And he, in the storyline, had murdered someone. And he went back to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania to see his old father at that time. And his father was so upset. He said, Jim, everybody saw what you did. He couldn't separate. You know, he was older. He was probably in some sort of dementia. But, you know, it's incumbent on us to separate who the person is.
Well, it's common actually a lot in the wrestling world. Because they're, you know, the wrestlers are playing characters, and
that's right.
Some really get heated, but I think there's still a big group of people that still believe that they're evil people, even out of the ring, for example. Like that's how you know they're playing the role really well, when you hate them, even when you see them in person.
That's right.
So I think some people, they just get submerged into it and just continue that they're the same person that they acted in.
Yeah, we have to look beyond the role.
Well, good luck convincing people. So I wanted to make a statement, and you can say if you agree or disagree. Ready?
Ready.
So would you say that movies today are better than movies produced, let's say, 40 years ago?
No, I don't think. I think there are wonderful movies being made today, and there were some wonderful movies in the past. I think there's always going to be talent for storytelling, for cinematic storytelling. Now technology allows us to do such amazing things. But storytelling is storytelling. If you've got a movie and you don't have enough of a story to tell, it doesn't matter how much great technology you have or money you have to make a movie. It boils down to the human impact of your story. Is it going to have an emotional impact or an intellectual impact on the viewer? So I think styles have changed through the years. We used to laugh, and I used to say, it's not enough that it's black and white. It has to be a terrific story. But many of the movies I love are still, the old classics. But I love new movies. I'm a movie person. I love film. And I think it's such a tremendous connector for us internationally. We understand what people in Iran and just Scandinavia, all over the world, are experiencing, how they're experiencing life the same and differently from us. But it makes us understand we're all human. And it doesn't matter what we look like or what language we speak. It's the great connector, storytelling. Music is the same thing. So, I would not categorize today's films being better or worse than films in the past. We couldn't be where we are today had we not gone through all the years of filmmaking.
I'm going to disagree with you there. And I feel like today's movie, the bar is set so much higher because I have some rules that I will follow. I'll never watch another black and white movie. I just feel like the acting is terrible. And I just can't sit through 20 minutes of it. I think it's too, sometimes it's too cookie cutter for me. And sometimes it's too, their acting down is too novice for me to now. The bar is set so much higher. It's not even comparable. How much better, let's say Leonardo DiCaprio. He would wipe the floor of every single person, and let's say in the black and white era. But even there's some movies that are, even when they want to do color, I just don't find them good at all. I just find them fall flat. I don't understand how people can see this as entertaining almost. But I do know that there are some movies that I've created now and they suck too. But I feel the bar of filming and acting is so much higher now that maybe maybe I get spoiled in a way, but I feel like it's much better art now than 50 years ago, for example.
Well, that's unfortunate for Turner Classic Movies because, younger people, many of them may feel the way you do, that they don't relate to the older black and white movies.
Well, it's not that I don't relate to them. I just don't think the actual production of it. I do recognize, I'll recognize, if a movie that's hard to produce at the time, I'll recognize the technology behind it. But the actual acting of it, and sometimes the story of it just wasn't great at all. And I don't understand how some movies can be the amazing classics where I don't think they're great at all to begin with. I can't even watch 20 minutes of some of them. I just turn it off.
Well, you're lucky to be living today then.
Yeah.
These films speak to you. I mean, films should be timely. They should speak to the people of their time. So, I just I listen to all different kinds of music. I've been listening to Harry Styles because I have an 18-year-old friend who's a filmmaker, and she just started college this year. And he's one of her favorite musicians today working. So I said, well, I need to hear what she loves. I'm crazy about the guy.
Watermelon Sugar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Watermelon sugar, kiwi. They're just wonderful, wonderful.
Adore You.
Yes. Yeah. And he's coming to New York for a concert. He's going to be in concert in New York in the middle of October. So, I just think I like to see what young people are listening to, what young people are watching. And, but I also like to see, I listen to opera. I listen to country. I listen to rock and roll. I listen to Queen a lot, but I like to know sort of the scope of things. And I think if I can keep my mind open and listen to someone like Harry Styles, who, probably not a lot of my friends are listening to, I find a writer, a singer, songwriter I absolutely love. I discovered Rufus Wainwright. Do you know Rufus Wainwright?
Nope.
He's a wonderful gay singer who writes love songs like The Man Who Got Away, the Judy Garland's great song. He sings it. It has a whole different meaning. It's of today. And so I try to listen to an eclectic group of music. I try to keep my mind open about film. So,
well, like I mentioned it before, like the movie, TV show, they're kind of recycling. A lot of music is recycled too. They'll take samples of older songs and make it modernized. And like sometimes I'll hear like an older song and I'll be like, oh my God, that's like that song is in the song. And it's like, you think they're like original in a way that they created this whole new thing, but it's been around for like 20 years already. And just no one knows about it because, it's like that you only listen to music kind of from where you're born till now. And then maybe like the best hits of, let's say, the 90s and 80s and 70s. But where's the recycling at this point?
Well, I think there's always been recycling. There's a saying, there are only 7 storylines. So, you take a storyline and adapt it to the vision that you have of how to tell that story. So there's a lot of repetition. Artists have always taken from each other. It's the way it is.
It's great. Like just sometimes it's hard to find original content. So let's talk about your working with Hollywood Art Collective. What is your role in it? And to refresh people's memories, is it a project to provide affordable housing for the arts and entertainment industry in the city of Los Angeles, California?
Right. I sit on the board. It's called the Western Council, and the Actors Fund is based in New York. It was started in the late 1800s because at that time there was only theater. People were on the road doing theater, vaudeville. And if somebody died on the road, and everyone was called an actor, whether he was a stage manager, the prop person, the advance person, or the performer, they were all called actors. So if somebody in a production died on the road in a small town of America, they couldn't get buried in consecrated grounds. They couldn't get buried in the local cemetery because acting was not considered an honorable profession.
Really?
So so somebody back in the 1880s bought land in New York State and set up a cemetery. And to this day, we will bury people in the entertainment business, any area of the business, who would like to be buried in that cemetery. We buried
acting kind of always been around for like hundreds and thousands of years. So
always.
So I'm just kind of surprised that they are not looked at important, but like it was important like the Roman times with Shakespeare. Like that's so weird.
Very often there were just men playing all the roles in Shakespeare. There's always been acting. As long as people communicate, there's been acting. But it was not considered a respectable profession.
That's so weird, though. I feel like it would be more honorable. Okay, you're entertaining. I mean, back in like the Roman times, like what else are you gonna do?
No, it wasn't. So anyway, so this cemetery was created, and then out of that, there was an organization called the Actors Fund of America, and it was primarily for people in the entertainment business. If you go to a Broadway show, they pass the cup around, or they used to, and that money goes to the Actors Fund, because the actors and Broadway fights AIDS. These are all organizations to help people who are in the entertainment business deal with health issues, deal with housing issues, deal with career issues. So anyway, I sit on the Western Council in Los Angeles, and we were chosen in a citywide competition 11 years ago to partner with the city of Los Angeles to build affordable housing for people in all areas of entertainment. So if you're a prop person, you're a costumer, you're a dancer, a stand-up, a musician, an actor, a director, a writer, you can come to the Actors Fund, and we help you. And we're the only organization in our business that gives grants. So during this last year and a half, we've given away $22 million to people all over the United States who didn't have the money to pay their rent or for food or whatever it was they needed. So it's a wonderful organization. Nobody has to pay us back. It's a grant. So what we realize is that Los Angeles, like Manhattan, is getting too expensive for people in the entertainment business to stay and pay the rents. So when we were chosen in this competition to build this affordable housing project, and it's a combination of affordable housing and an arts center. So in the middle of COVID, we got $100 million from the city of Los Angeles, and we broke ground last February. We're now up to like the ground floor. We did all the underground parking spaces first. We're building up. We will have 152 apartments that are affordable for people in our business, individuals, families with up to 4 children, with rents that they can, afford. It'll be a lottery system. They will have to show that they've earned a certain amount of money in 3 out of the previous years. And they'll be able to, if they're selected, live in this community. And it's beautiful. It's right on Hollywood Boulevard. And then attached in a separate building is the Arts Collective. And that's where there's a theater and rehearsal space. There's going to be a couple of recording studios for musicians. There's an outdoor amphitheater. There are a couple of art galleries. It's really going to be an exciting creative hub. And the whole idea is that the people who live in this community and those of us who work with the Actors Fund will do outreach to the neighborhood children and young people and community to bring them into the arts, because so much of that has disappeared from schools. So we will give classes in singing, dancing, whatever. And hopefully we'll use our residents of this affordable housing project to teach. So that's what I work on. I'm co-chair of development, which means I help raise the money for this. And we're doing great. The city came in with their money. We have to bring our share of the money in, and we're moving along quite well. And the doors will open to residents in 2023. So it's a wonderful project. I'm very happy to be working on it. The people who work in the Actors Fund, many of them, and the person who's head of the Actors Fund in Los Angeles, Keith McNutt, they're social workers. So they really get what people need to help them live a decent life. So that's one of the things I put my producing experience towards. And then we met through my college alumni association, because I don't know if people watching this know, but Joey is our technical advisor. And so he sets up our board meeting Zooms and any other kinds of presentations we need. He advises us. So I sit on my college alumni board, and the college closed many years ago. but we raise money so that girls in the New York tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, who have 2 years of community college, we will help pay for them to get their bachelor's degrees. And so far, we've helped well over 100 women, and that's very rewarding. And because I went to Finch on a scholarship, it's sort of full circle for me to help other young women fulfill their educational dreams. So anybody watching who has 2 years of community college can go to our website and explore how we might be there to help them move forward and fulfill getting a bachelor's degree. So those are the two main things I work on. And Joey mentioned that I'm a textile artist. My mother taught me when I was finishing college how to quilt, and I still do textiles. If you want to see my work, you can go to my website, gofindalba.com. and you'll see some of my work. My website needs updating. Joey doesn't do that, but I need to find someone to update it. But that's sort of my soul food, to go into my studio and cut fabric and design textiles. So that's what my life is about.
So what is your favorite part then? Do you like acting, producing, directing, textile, working, or co-chair?
I like it all. My mother used to say, when you're cooking a dinner, you should enjoy food shopping, prep, cooking, and cleanup, because you have to do the
not to clean up. That's the worst part, I think, for everyone, is to clean up.
Really, I kind of like the cleanup, especially if I've had friends over, because, it gives me a chance to sort of reflect on our time together. But I like, what I like in my life is the variety. I'm going to stand up at my college alumni has a big fundraiser every year, and it's been pushed now twice. So we're going to meet in October 2021, a few weeks from now, in New York. And I'll stand up and introduce these really wonderful graduates, wonderful women who attended Finch. And so jumping up and down and talking in front of an audience is easy for me. Mm-hmm. So it just, part of what I've done in my life and my career. So I would say I apply, the acting and the producing to all other areas of my life, even the textile work. I do a lot of the organizing. I go to an annual retreat up in San Francisco Harbor, an old military base. And we've been meeting for many years. And we were sort of the women who brought back quilting. There was a big revival of it in the 70s. So I've been very involved with that community. And so what I like in my life is having friends from different communities, whether it's my textile world, my entertainment world, all that I find very interesting and just nurturing, and makes my life very interesting.
Yeah, you just seem to like to be part of the process of building something up instead of just one role. You like to do everything in a not a controlling way, but you just like to be included and, I guess, experience every step of the way to understand everything, how everything works.
Right. I think it's important to learn to be a team player. You don't see me this way, but I was probably a pretty strong and pretty demanding producer, because I was demanding on myself. And I used to say to people, when you come to the set, you're here to work.
Yeah.
You have issues, personal things going on, you have to leave them off the set. We can get back to them. You need some help, great, but don't bring it to work, because we're here to do a job as a team, and everybody has to, pull their weight. So
yeah, you have a vision and you want to execute it, and you need others to help you do that.
That's right. And then you reward everyone, because, you end up with having had, hopefully, an enjoyable working experience and fulfilling working experience. So,
But do you think you have to try harder because you were a woman? I'm sure women had a lot harder growing up
You
back
know,
then versus now.
I didn't because I always worked in theater. And there was, there were roles for women or roles for men when I was coming through. The men weren't playing the women's roles in drag like the old days. So I didn't really run into sexism in my career. I think it was just the right time. The women's movement had happened. And now, look around us. There are women doing everything today. And that's partially why I really love to work with the scholars through the College Alumni Association, because these young women are doing things I would never have known existed. They're really going into professions that are so interesting and so away from what my career path and my life path was. And it's thrilling to see them doing what they're doing. And they're able to do it because of the women who came before them, of course.
Yeah, you helped pave the road.
And women before me paved the road for me. So,
and you kept it maintained for newer people.
That's right. And we have to, just as we were talking about music and, films, I think it's critical that as we get older, that we keep that door open and we hear what young people are interested in. It's interesting to me to hear that you don't like black and white films. So I want to know, then what is a film that you love? So if or listen to my young friend Ava about her love of Harry Styles, otherwise, if you don't keep up with what young people are interested in, then you get left behind in the world. And a lot of older people, as they get older, their worlds shrink. I'm determined that my world keeps expanding.
Even now, it's get tiring to try to keep up with the younger generation. They're living in their own world, and at one point, it kind of just let them have their world, and you have your world, and you just kind of stay in your world, because they're just creating a whole new generation of, interest and music and artists and everything. It's like they're on a different planet almost.
Well, every generation feels that way.
Yeah.
If you think back to what parents thought of the Beatles, in the 60s, 70s, the music, so every generation has to find their own experience.
Yeah, we just recycle. It's just a never-ending cycle.
Well, hopefully we then make it our own, whatever time we're going through.
Before I take the mic away from you, is there anything you want to plug or say or tips, anything you want?
Ooh, just carpe diem, seize the day.
Okay.
We're lucky to be coming out of, I hope we are coming out of this lockdown, difficult period in the world. And there are wonderful opportunities for everyone. We have to do it in our own way. As you and I were talking, Joey, earlier, we have to find the way to do it. So I just say, get the most out of life, do what's right for you.
Yeah, that's a great way to end it. Carpe diem. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.